there's actual meaning behind I have a gut feeling, and it has to do with the vagus nerve. And we walk into a room and we instantly can feel, uh-oh, or wow, this is peaceful. And what that is our nervous system is scanning that room.
Welcome back to the View podcast. We are once again live from the Confidence Summit at the Ritz-Carlton in Rancho Mirage, California. And we have another special episode. This is actually a takeover from our health and wellness panel. And we have three amazing women joining. Nicole Ziomek, Melanie Richter, and Debbie Bennett. These women have all been on the podcast before, so make sure to check out their previous episodes, but you will not want to miss this conversation. Let's welcome these three women in.
Hi, my name is Melanie Richter. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist and have my master's in nutrition, health span, and longevity.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bennett. I am a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, and I practice functional psychiatry, and I work with clients one-on-one in my practice called Bennett Wellness.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nicole Ziomek, and I am a naturopathic endocrinologist. I have a practice called True You Medical. It's a functional medicine practice focused on hormones and lots of complex chronic disease.
We're here at the Women's Confidence Summit, and we were just on a panel of
gut, brain, and hormone health.
Yes, thank you very much for stepping in. And I think, before the panel, we all were given 3 to 5 questions, and I think all worked. But once we got up there was so much to say that we didn't even get to finish what we wanted to educate the audience about. So I guess now we get a second chance to be here and, talk to each other and finish what we started.
We had a couple of the themes that we talked about were the importance of gut health and how we are what we eat, and we are also only as healthy as we are able to digest the foods that we're eating. So that was a big topic that we had, and how that relates to hormone health, which Dr. Nicole went deep into, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, and so just a little bit about hormones that we didn't go into. A lot of people, we think segmentally about our health. Our gut's here, our hormones are there, and our brain's there, but no, they're all interconnected. And so that's what we're geeking out on, because all of what we do in our own specialties overlap, and it's so important to, when you are actually treating someone for longevity and optimization, you have to address everything, from the neurotransmitters in the brain to the hormones and the changes we go through, perimenopause, menopause, and then the gut and how that gut affects that, and vice versa. So we've been having a good time just talking about all that.
We had a great conversation about GLPs because they're all connected, from what they do to your brain, to what they do to your gut, to what they do to your hormones. So we all had our little parts, I think.
Well, to even go back on that, if anybody's not familiar with what a GLP-1 is, the probably number one or number two thing that comes into my office is, I just want to lose that 10 pounds. I really want to be healthy too, but I can't fit in my clothes. So that segues into what are the most popular things we're doing as functional medicine doctors. And one of the tools we use is called GLP. The branded word is Ozempic or Wegovy. And so these peptides can be used, I think, for greater benefit, tremendous benefit, but also can be tremendously harmful, especially if you're honoring the gut, which I'll let you guys go into a little bit. But for me, just the idea about anything in life, there's balance. And if you're just taking something to get a quick fix, there's always the underlying things you're going to pay for. And most importantly with longevity is you need strong muscles and you need killer hormones. And if you take GLPs and lose a bunch of weight and don't eat well and move and lift, what happens is everything else that you need to live long will go on the wayside. And I promise you that will come back and haunt you. So low doses is my jam. I do a lot of micro dosing before even the starting dose, and I found that helpful. And speak about the mental health effects that you've seen with people on appreciable doses.
Higher dosages, and the longer that you take these medications, how they work is they slow down your digestion. They slow down the motility. And what happens if you're not either taking in the nutrients because your appetite is suppressed, or your body is not digesting the nutrients that you are bringing in, you're not getting the nutrients that your brain needs to form your neurotransmitters, your serotonin, your dopamine, your norepinephrine. And I'm starting to see patients, some of the side effects are depressed mood, decreased energy, and even fragmented sleep because of decrease in serotonin. So it is extremely important, yes, that these are a piece of the puzzle and that you take care of every other part of your body, and that you really stay connected to your healthcare providers. And if you start having these symptoms, you don't have to go off of them, but be aware and make sure you treat the symptoms so they can be sustainable, and we really continue to look at longevity, not just the quick fixes.
With GLP-1s, it's important, we spoke about on the panel, that they shouldn't be used in silo. Ultimately, there's a couple mechanisms of action that happen when you are on a GLP-1, including appetite suppression, right? That's one of the mechanisms that influence how they work. And when you reduce your appetite, you are also reducing your food intake. And when you reduce your food intake, there's a chance that you might not be getting all of the nutrients that you need. So, and nutrients, when we break down the food that we're eating, those nutrients provide the raw material to then produce serotonin and dopamine and norepinephrine and all of these other things that we need. Short-chain fatty acids, we talked about it on the gut lining. So you have to be very careful. It's not, in my world, it shouldn't be something you take forever. It could be a tool in your toolbox to get over that hump and to help you, so long as you're also acknowledging and doing work around your lifestyle, how you got here, your behaviors. If you start to take GLP-1s and you meet your goals and you come off of them and you go right back to eating a high processed diet or doing all of these lifestyle habits that have potentially got you to where you needed to be on GLP-1s to begin with, that's a problem, right? The second thing, though, that we talked about that I think is really interesting from the positive side is insulin. GLP-1s are a mechanism that helps to your body to respond better to insulin. It actually helps to improve your insulin response. We are in a chronic health world, and insulin is at the epicenter of diabetes, obesity, heart disease even. And part of this is just all of the refined carbohydrates, added sugars that we have in all of these foods that we're eating. And a lot of us don't even know that we're eating all of these. I usually take my patients through and we do nutrition facts labels analysis where we actually look how much added sugar is in the sauces you're eating, the breads that you're eating, these processed foods. All of these things are contributing to your body's reduced ability to have insulin function properly, because insulin's the hormone that pulls glucose into our cells and allows our cells to work better. So ultimately it's insulin, I think, that needs a little bit more attention. The GLP-1s work on this, that you can do a lot outside of GLP-1s as well, or adjunctive therapies to support you in that way. So
I think another important thing that we talked about is when you want to come off of them, what happens? If you want to talk on that, because I think that's huge for everybody to understand. People either are fearful that they have to stay on them forever, and do they? And if not, what do they have to do?
Well, first of all, GLP-1s are not new. They've been around for decades, but the use and the amount of use that is happening in our world right now is astronomically high right now. So time will tell. But if you go back to the wisdom of the human body and optimization of longevity, I just don't like the idea of having to take something for the rest of your life, although I am a proponent of hormones, but like having to take a drug or a peptide to make me this way, when honestly most of it comes from imbalances of either nutrition, movement, sleep, and or not addressing your hormones. So perimenopause and menopause, if you don't take hormone replacement, you're going to have an increased risk for insulin resistance. Yes, your ghrelin and adiponectin and all these hormones that modulate fat storage will change. So if we look deeper, we can get to the answers and actually kind of fix without the need for that. So coming off can either look like lowering doses, and at that time, over the months, the whole thing that I know all of us work on is getting the lifestyle on track, right? So you have to eat well to feel well and to look well. And so that's foundational. So when you get off, you think you're going to go back to whatever you're doing and you can slide by. Let's just be honest, there is no quick fix. So that's one thing. Second thing I use, this is basic, it's not like a huge amazing thing. It's called fiber. Fiber is an appetite satiator, right? And so when we tend to overeat or compulsively eat, etc., sometimes it's finding foods and or supplements that are nutrient dense in the ways that can fill our belly and send signals to the brain being like, okay, and the food noise goes down. So I often use that. I use certain strains of probiotics, different ones that will raise your natural GLP-1 production, and or just, by the way, if you have an adequate amount of estrogen in your body, you will raise your GLP-1. So women going through menopause can have some different hunger signaling, etc., which can change diet and nutrition intake, but part of it is because their food noise is different than it was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, if you think about, I mean, you just spawned a thought that we have a couple different sphincters in our body, one that connects our esophagus to our stomach, and then the one at the bottom that connects our stomach to our small intestine. And when we're digesting food from the stomach, it only opens a couple times a minute. Fiber actually slows that opening, so which is also, that's why it slows everything down. GLP-1s also slow everything down. So there can be other ways that you can support yourself to, you know, get the same results that you're seeking. And gut health. Let's talk about it. We can talk ad nauseum about gut health, can we?
Well, I think this is an interesting fact that you had talked about. So all of us do this microbiome analysis through your stool. Like, you literally can get a stack of what your bug community is in your gut. And there's these ratios, like the Firmicutes to Bacteroides. There's a phyla of bugs. And when you have an imbalance, you're more propense to be storing fat, or more propensity for insulin resistance, etc. So that automatically tells us if your gut bugs aren't balanced, don't expect your metabolism to be good. And that maybe has nothing to do with GLP-1s. It just is about getting that gut back to a healthy state.
Yeah.
And if they're not balanced, don't expect your brain to be balanced. So it all really does, you know, I think that's one great thing about how medicine is changing and more functional medicine is we're really looking at what are causing our symptoms rather than just medicating them. And it's been really fun to be on a panel with, you know, everybody kind of having the same foundation, but different areas of expertise.
Yeah. It's all about whole body care. I mean, we're long gone are the days, we hope, of our systems working in silo, right? It's where neurologists are only focusing on the brain because, yeah, we have this thing called the vagus nerve that runs down our spine that basically tells our brain and our gut what each other is doing each moment of every day. If that, you know, we're constantly, multi-systems are talking to each other all the time.
That was one of my answers in there because I had said, you know, I think people would really want to know, what does I have a gut feeling mean? And it actually is not a feeling. We didn't go there, but I thought that would be really interesting.
We didn't even get to it.
Because there's actual meaning behind I have a gut feeling, and it has to do with the vagus nerve.
Thank you everyone for watching. This episode is sponsored by Blanky Shine Wealth Management. We've been in the Coachella Valley for 40 years and we're built for the next 40 years. You can find us at blankyshinewealthmanagement.com. And now back to the episode.
Yep. And we walk into a room and we instantly can feel, uh-oh, or wow, this is peaceful. And what that is our nervous system is scanning that room and our body senses it and sends messages to our brain. So we actually feel it in our body, and 90% of what we feel comes from our body to our brain, not the other way around, which everybody thinks it comes from your brain down to your body. So I have a gut feeling is really because your gut sends signals to your brain before your brain is even aware of it.
I like to give the example, if you're curious about like real time, everyone's experienced this, where you're nervous about something and you have a test or a presentation or you're racing, you're on race day, and then you suddenly have like this feeling of like your gut's all in knots, or maybe you have to go to the bathroom immediately. That's a gut-related situation, right? Your brain is talking to your gut. Also, you know, I talked about in my practice, I specialize in gut health, and half of the people that come to see me have a form of anxiety or depression, because of how interconnected they are all the time. If you don't have the right bacteria or gut makeup in your gut, if the junctures of your gut lining is not healthy or optimal. I specialize in people that have mold and yeast overgrowth. Yeah. You mentioned that too, and those are environmental things that you can get. I mean, the diet can be huge, but if you have a fungi family that's overgrown, that will absolutely, you know, they prefer to eat glucose, which is from carbohydrates. So if those cravings that come at 3 p.m., 4 p.m., and you feel out of control over what it is that you're eating, usually that's not a willpower thing. Usually that's a biological, physiological response. Yep. It's happening inside your gut. So
I just had a patient that happened to. She came to me and just learning about these tests. No, I have nothing wrong with me. You know, I'm just a little off, but I'd love to know more. And she was on a GLP-1, and what had happened was massive sugar cravings at night, which she wasn't eating a lot, so she was getting her calories, but she had those massive sugar cravings because her body had slowed down so much. She had yeast overgrowth. Her whole gut was just invaded with yeast. And we got rid of the yeast. Her nutrients came back up to their levels. Her neurotransmitters came back up. She was sleeping better. And she actually came to me and she goes, oh my gosh, Debbie, I didn't even know how bad I felt until I felt better. And that's the beauty of functional medicine is, you know, we help people when they just feel off before they get to the disease process.
A common question and confusion. I mean, if you've made it into our office, you've got the memo. But there are so many women and men out there who want something more for their health, who are seeking something more from their doctor, who are frustrated with being told their lab panels look good, and you come home and you're just like, I feel like crap, there's something off. Where's the connect in between? So what do? You get on the internet and you go onto AI and you try to diagnose yourself, because that's literally the only tool that you know what to do next, because you have that motivation to find something more. I just encourage everyone out there, and by the way, I've been in practice for about 16 years. It wasn't like this 16 years ago. It was the age of this. But right now, in about every city, wherever you're listening, there is a functional medicine doctor. Now, naturopathic medicine, near and dear to my heart, that's what I am, is like the epitome of what functional medicine word came from. But it doesn't have to be a naturopath. It could be an MD, a DO, a nurse practitioner, a psychiatrist, a nutritionist that has this philosophy that they will work for you, and we will find the tests that look behind the scenes, that look preventative, that are the things that you need to do to draw the line between I feel sick and everything's okay, and that's just not true. And if your doctor isn't meeting you there, you need to be an advocate for yourself. And that's just the case. What annoys me the most, to be honest with you, with my patients, I am actually, it's called fee for service. You come in, you see me for an amount of time, I help you out, and you're on your way. Insurance doesn't cover that. But I promise you, I'm working harder. And insurance won't cover that, at least not in California, because it's not the standard of care.
Not yet.
Right? Yeah, it's not the standard of care. So yeah, you might have to save up, but how much is your health worth? It's worth everything.
Also, imagine how much you're going to get back from time when you don't get that disease, right?
And we talked about this too, is insurance, they cover the conventional labs, which conventional labs show you when your body's diseased. And that's why so many people, exactly what, you know, Dr. Nicole just said, is you feel off, but your labs are fine. Well, they're fine because you're not diseased yet. But what we all look at is functional medicine labs look at how is your body functioning? How is it starting to dysregulate? How is it starting to compensate? And we can fix that before it gets diseased.
It's easier to fix that before disease. In fact, a lot of these chronic conditions that are the four main killers that are out there, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and cancer, all can be detected well before you have these things, and most of them can be reversed if you catch them before that.
And I'm just going to counteract, but agree with you, but counteract. Blood tests will show advanced disease. Disease is a spectrum, right? So diabetes isn't overnight you become diabetic. You first become insulin resistant. You first have prediabetes. This is a spectrum of devolving health over years of time. So you already are in a disease state at that pre-stage. Right. It's just not what the laboratory tells you is, I'm going to make a code, this is medical code, to say that you actually have this disease. But let me just tell you, these steps before are already disease in a different degree. So if you actually don't want a disease, wouldn't you rather catch it on the forefront and not the afterthought? Because some of them aren't reversible. Sadly.
And we were talking too, and I think both of our philosophies is our body whispers before it screams. And as a society, we are just trained, especially as women, we adapt so easily that you adapt to these changes. We normalize them. Oh, well, this is age, or this is stress, or this is, you know, whatever's going on in your universe. But that's not true, because exactly what Dr. Nicole just said is we don't wake up one day diseased. You know, our body's functioning, and then it goes to something starts to become a little bit off, and then we adapt, and then our body becomes exhausted, and then we become diseased. But during that whole entire process, our body's giving us signals. You know, it could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be a change in motivation, it could be, you know, stress intolerance, but we need to listen to our bodies, and we need to be advocates and find people who are willing to listen and dig a little deeper rather than just normalize or medicate our symptoms.
Yeah. I do think it's a problem of convenience, don't you? And in many ways, I think we're living in a society where convenience is so easy, you know, that it becomes, so many of us are walking around functioning at 60% and don't even realize it, or they just chalk it up to age. Oh, this is a normal part of aging. Oh, this is just, my family has a history of this, so I probably will. We just kind of like resign to this idea that this is just how we're gonna be.
And you said that what got you into functional medicine is you had like IBS, and she was told, yeah, that's life. You know, walk around dealing with your IBS, but that is not true. We don't have to just walk around.
No, we don't. There's so much that you can change. And there was an incredible conversation at the beginning of the conference about, you know, yes, you're born with a set of genes, sure, that make you maybe more probable potentially of getting a particular type of disease, but your genes are only actually a much smaller fraction of your chance of actually getting disease than we ever thought before. You can turn on and turn off your genes through food, through diet, through lifestyle. And that's, if anything, one of the most empowering things I think that we can know as consumers, as patients, as people in the world, that we have the power. And one of the things that I think all three of us align on is that food is the medicine that we have every single day, multiple times a day. Mm-hmm. It's on our plates every single day. Yeah,
food, it's not your sleep, and your movement.
It's not. It's not inaccessible to anybody. We all can do this.
Yeah.
I think as women, and by the men and women, we're all ruled by our hormones, right? And everything we've just talked about adulterates hormones. But women, if you don't know this in medicine, we aren't studied as much as men. So a lot of the things about heart disease and about hormones, testosterone, we're not in those studies, so we're not gleaming that information. And frankly, your regular GP isn't talking to you about it. You know, even gynecologists, do you know that women's health doctors for down there, they're not trained on hormones. They actually have to go to a specialty. There's only a small 10% of medical schools that actually train them in that. So again, be your own advocate. And so there's these major changes in a woman that you have to understand. Everybody knows the word menopause, and that means 12 months, no period. But guess what, ladies? Your 30s and 40s are like we said, it's the starting point, right? You're on a spectrum to making that transition. So it's typically 10 to 15 years of perimenopause when your hormones are just not stable. And a lot of it isn't your fault, it's aging. But what we're trying to talk about is not only helping you with natural hormone replacement, but literally, if you don't have a healthy gut, you don't metabolize your estrogen well. So you already have these estrogen imbalances, and then your gut's off. You'll wake up the next day at 42 with hot flashes, thinking you're going through menopause, which you're not, but you're still hormonally imbalanced. So we have to work on all these different levels, and hormones are a conversation you should be having with your doctor. And if they don't know, or they tell you you're too young, I need you to turn around and go find someone that will work with you, because it's not okay to suffer anymore. No woman should not have access to things that will help her be longevitous. The number one thing to kill you is your heart. Your heart disease will kill you. Number two, bones, okay? Not cancer, literally falling with osteoporosis. And the third thing you don't want to die with is brain disease. You don't want dementia. And every single one of those things are improved on quality of life and decreased chance of dying if you have enough estrogen and to a certain degree testosterone and progesterone on board. So don't stop when you go through those transitions and say, I'm just aged out. It's not true.
And I don't know, all my friends, when I was in my 40s, and you move out here to the desert and everybody's older than you are, and every single one of them said to me, do it now. I wish I would have started 10, 20 years ago on my hormone replacement therapy. So it was one good thing of having all older friends when I first moved out here, is they educated me. And I mean, it's longevity.
In closing, I just want to remind you about what I have talked about with hormones. We are hormonal creatures. We need them to survive. We are rhythmic hormonal individuals. And if you are struggling and not feeling well, and you haven't looked into getting a hormone test or talk to your doctor about it, please do so. You do not need to suffer, especially women. We are told there's nothing wrong with us. It's just a stage. You're in perimenopause or menopause. That's not true. You can do something, and us functional medicine doctors out here and practitioners will help you through that. You do not need to suffer.
In closing, I just want to say that for so long, people have thought mental health is the brain, and it's so much more than the brain. So if you have any symptoms, anxiety, depression, lower energy, don't just be okay with that. Again, find yourself a functional medicine doctor, integrative psychiatrist, and find the root cause of those symptoms. And if I can leave with you doing one thing, it would be stop asking yourself, what is wrong with me? And start asking, what part of my body is asking for support? What system might be, dysfunctioning that I can help? And if you do that, you really can change the trajectory of your longevity and overall health and wellness.
Also, just know that your gut is at the epicenter. It's at the center of everything else. Just about everything has some roots or component to your gut health. And if you're walking around with a little bit of gas, a little bit of diarrhea, and you're thinking nothing's wrong, something's wrong. It's your body saying that something's not right. Listen to that before it becomes, a significant autoimmune condition or anxiety, depression, all of these things that are advanced stages of a gut-related issue. So your gut is quite literally the house that you need to be nourishing now, and you can do that in so many ways that truly just simply start at your plate and with your food. Thank you so much to the Confidence Summit for having us. We had such a fun time on this panel. It's happening here at the Ritz-Carlton in Rancho Mirage, but you can actually, all three of us did podcasts on the Few podcast, which you can find on YouTube and where every podcast is streaming right now. But you can also, if you're watching this, hopefully you can find our individual episodes too. Thank you so much for having us. It's been a true treat.
Wow, those women are such a wealth of knowledge, and all this information is just invaluable, and we're so thankful for them for being at our summit today and joining us on the podcast. I hope that everyone learned something from this that they can use in their life and feel just as inspired as I do by them. As always, subscribe to the podcast to stay tuned and follow us on our socials.
This podcast is brought to you by David Field Producer. It is produced and directed by David Field and Kristen George. And it's mix, edit, and socials by Kristen George and Sam Aguirre. Blanky Shine Wealth Management is a group of investment professionals registered with Hightower Services, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC, and with Hightower Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor with the SEC. Securities are offered through Hightower Securities, LLC. Advisory services are offered through Hightower Advisors, LLC. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. No investment process is free of risk, and there is no guarantee that the investment process or the investment opportunities referenced herein will be profitable. Past performance is not indicative of current or future performance and is not a guarantee. The investment opportunities referenced herein may not be suitable for all investors. All data and information referenced herein are from sources believed to be reliable. Any opinions, news, research, analysis, prices, or other information contained in this research is provided as general market commentary. It does not constitute investment advice. Blanky Shine Wealth Management and Hightower shall not in any way be liable for claims and make no expressed or implied representations or warranties as to the accuracy or completeness of the data and other information, or for statements or errors contained in or omissions from the obtained data and information referenced herein. The data and information are provided as of the date referenced. Such data and information are subject to change without notice. This document was created for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed are solely those of Blanky Shine Wealth Management and do not represent those of Hightower Advisors, LLC, or any of its affiliates.